Hello, and welcome to the new episode of Dakota Boys Talk Movies.
Yay! Cue the fanfare!
I don't know. Oh, that kind of reminded me of episode 1, which we don't want to talk about. But tonight we are going to talk about an episode from that franchise, episode 7, The Force Awakens, the new Star Wars movie in the franchise, which is, now it's a continuation of where Return of the Jedi left off, more or less. And so we're excited to talk about that tonight.
Yeah, for those of you who did not know that this movie was coming out,
you must, what's that old saying? Live under a rock. Because, man, even the thing is even if you didn't have internet, if you didn't have cable, if you were homeless, you would know this movie was coming out because they made every kind of possible promotional material you could make with this. I mean, every time I walk through Target, there's like BB-8s following me around and stuff, and it's like, holy cats.
I heard in Tokyo they actually resorted to skywriting.
What? They still do that?
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
but
they're like pulling the banner with the skywriting. That would be cool to see. I wish they were doing that, actually, now that I think about it. Except if they could get like an airplane, make it look like an X-Wing fighter and have it do skywriting. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Or a TIE fighter.
Well, this whole movie was kind of, some could say, blown out of proportion, but I don't really think it was. They had all that insane amount of toys.
A lot of toys.
Force Friday, where they released all the toys for this movie and kind of...
Yeah, and people tried to turn that into Spoiler Friday by speculating what every little toy meant. Even though how many movies do like toys that have nothing to do with things in the movie? Like, whoa, they put this in the same package as this person. I mean, that could mean anything or nothing, really.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me. There's... Nah, we won't go into it. That's something I'll bring up for another day.
Yeah, but I think before we do talk more about Episode 7, which we're excited to talk about, in the midst of Star Wars mania, I guess you could call it, there was also just a slew, explosive diarrhea amount of trailers that came out in just the past few weeks. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, it was like...
Yeah.
It was like some of these movies I think thought maybe they would get noticed in the midst of like the frenzy of Star Wars, and I don't know.
I think it was like the worst time because it's like, oh, that trailer came out.
In a way, it was just because now it's when you have all the like Oscar contenders trying to, elbow their way in, going, "Hey, don't forget about us, even though we only cost $2 million and nobody will see us, and we'll still win Best Picture." And then you have Star Wars in the midst of that, and then you got all this like potential hype for Leo's movie coming out on Christmas and Quentin Tarantino's movie coming out on Christmas. And then these trailers came out. But which of the trailers kind of stuck out to you, Dakota, in these past few weeks?
Honestly, there was probably the one that people talked about, whether you loved it or hated it. There was no middle ground with this one. I'm referring, of course, to the trailer for Batman vs. Superman. Yes,
there was, we had gotten that. Well, a couple early teasers, really, and this one really showed a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what made it divisive, I think, is that I'll say people like me loosely, just because there's some people that are, like, way more zealous haters than I am, but I did feel a little bit that I saw Act 1, and then I saw Act 2, and then I saw Act 3 in that trailer, and we can all do the whole... Yeah, but you didn't see all of it. But at the same time, I feel like I saw a lot of the hero shots from each of those acts. And that's what kind of worries me. Because we saw them mad at each other. Or we saw the build-up, really, to them being mad at each other. We saw them mad at each other. And then we saw them team up together. And it was like... I mean, that's going to happen. But at the same time, I think I was kind of hoping they wouldn't necessarily be a team by the end of this movie. I kind of hoped this whole movie would be versus... And now I know it isn't,
Well, to be fair, you should have saw that coming. I mean...
But, well, I should have, just because
pretty much after this movie ends, we're getting a Justice League movie, and Zack Snyder kind of flat out said, as this movie was getting made, this isn't a sequel to Man of Steel.
Right.
This is something else.
But I guess what I mean more so is I don't know. I guess maybe this is part of it. Is I think they're rushing the Justice League. I don't know if the Justice League should be the next movie after this. Maybe that's kind of the issue because I'm just worried that they could have this really cool build up, like have like an actual Man of Steel 2 after this, or a Batman movie, or a Wonder Woman movie, even, and then do Justice League. I don't know. So we'll see. Because maybe, I mean, honestly, we're only like, 3 months from this now?
Yeah.
And so,
oh wow, we're coming up on it pretty fast.
Yeah, I mean, so we're at like, the 90-ish day mark. And so I guess we don't really have to wait long to see how it works. And honestly, I really do hope I'm wrong in that it isn't disappointing.
That trailer, actually, I loved it. I just loved every single moment of it. I really did. From the banter with Clark and Bruce, and then you had
and I liked that. I liked the first like little them meeting each other thing. I liked that that's kind of what I wanted more of the whole movie to be, and I don't think it's gonna be.
Yeah, and then
that
we got a little bit more Lex Luthor,
which isn't a good thing. I don't know about the Lex thing either.
And then there was the big reveal, which is a villain showed up. I won't say which one. You're gonna have to go watch it yourself if you haven't seen it. But
you've seen him. It's Donatello.
The geek. A lot of people say he looks like a Ninja Turtle, but I think he looks a lot like the Troll. I found this out recently. Weta Workshop is doing the effects for this.
Yeah, because I saw this mashup thing, and they showed Doomsday like slam to the ground and like do the raw thing, and then they cut to Boromir from Lord of the Rings. Go, they have a cave troll, and it's like, yes, that's awesome. Yeah, and I'm glad they're using. I mean, Weta Digital does good work. I mean, there's a couple other cool action shots in that movie where the visual effects do look good. I just hope the rest of the movie matches up. Just because I don't know, that's Zack Snyder. He can pump all these cool visuals, but he kind of, I don't know if he ends up being like a lapdog to Warner Brothers or what, because it just seems like his movies kind of a tendency to be a little lifeless. And so, I don't know. And before everybody thinks I'm a DC hater, I had some qualms with the Civil War trailer that came out too. I don't know. I don't know about the whole, like, I don't think there's been enough Iron Man and Captain America not liking each other. I have a feeling that might seem a little rushed too, like the Sokovia Accords or whatever that thing is at General Ross Springs is going to make them so immediately take sides that it's like, I don't know. We'll see if that works out too. So again, I hope that works out, because that's probably going to have repercussions into the next 20 Marvel movies, because that's how Marvel does it. And so it's like, well, hopefully that works out.
It probably wouldn't. It probably won't affect the Howard the Duck movie though.
What would be cool about like Civil War though is if like the mid-credit, post-credit, whatever scene was Tony Stark finding out about this group that works in outer space, and he reaches out to them. I mean, I think that'd be a cool way, because like, a lot of the stuff that Tony's doing is in his like in trying to figure out how to best protect the Earth mode, because he knows something bigger is coming. It's been the whole thing. That's why he accidentally released Ultron in his attempt to protect the Earth better, and that maybe he'll be the one that reaches out to the Guardians and kind of pulls them in at some point. Or maybe Vision, since he's kind of a little more whatever he is. Like maybe he'll kind of do it. But yeah, interesting stuff. I guess for me, honestly, the one that impressed me the most that I was not expecting at all out of the most recent ones, Independence Day Resurgence. Where the heck did that come from? Like,
I think it was we probably all kind of wrote it off. Like, they're making a sequel to this movie.
A year. Well, I mean, Roland Emmerich's talked about it for years.
Yeah.
But I don't know, a year and a half ago when I heard Roland Emmerich is heavy into like the pre-production, and I'm like, what? This is really gonna happen? And it was like, and then there was all these rumors that Will Smith was gonna be the president in it, and I'm just like, oh, that sounds stupid. And then I did kind of write it off. Well, now I don't care what anybody says. I'm glad Will Smith's not in it. I think he's really overrated. And so I'm kind of curious where they'll go with that. And it's just like kind of a cool idea of we use the alien technology to better protect us, but the rest of the aliens come in fuller force, and it's nice to see the Goldblum back. And Bill Pullman was in that preview, looking a little grizzled. So kind of cool to see where they go with some of that. So I hope that premise works out and see what happens there. But yeah,
then I think the one that kind of underwhelmed, and I don't think really got people talking, was the Tarzan one that we had come out here.
Yeah, like that just kind of like came out and was like, for about 5 minutes it was trending, like Tarzan trailer's out, and then all of a sudden it was just like, and then it was gone. It was like, and nobody cared, and it was like, I don't know. Yeah. I just don't think anybody cares.
Yeah, honestly, that's the same thing that happened with the World of Warcraft trailer.
Yeah.
Or what is it, the Warcraft trailer?
Yeah, it came out, and everybody thought they were excited for it, and then we saw the trailer, and we're all kind of like, okay, there it is. So there you go. Except World of Warcraft's like a year away? It's like next Christmas, I think, or something stupid like that.
Yeah, it's a ways away.
It's like a year away, and because we'll practically have the next Star Wars, like Episode 8. I'm talking, not Rogue One, by the time, because I think the next Star Wars comes out in summer 2017.
Yeah, by the time that movie comes out, everyone will be getting excited because we'll be seeing on-set shots of the cast, and it'll be like, let's dissect every little thing going on here.
And the other thing with Tarzan just seems like they're trying to play off Margot Robbie mania, like, Margot Robbie is Jane, and everybody will care again, and nobody really cares.
I'm gonna bring up one that kind of flew way under the radar, but I actually got me interested in the movie. Was Whiskey Tango Foxtrot? Have you seen?
Yes, I did see the trailer for that. He's referring to, if you're not sure what this is, a Tina Fey movie that's kind of a little bit of a biopic. It's a true story of a woman reporter who goes over to, Afghanistan and Pakistan?
I think it's supposed to be Afghanistan, or she's in Iraq too, I think.
Oh, okay. I can't remember if it's Pakistan or Iraq. And yeah, it's based on her memoirs, basically going there, and Tina Fey's in it. And so it's kind of like hanging in that balance of being a drama with comedic elements, it seems, by the trailer anyway. And so I don't know, we'll see if that works out. She's kind of playing Liz Lemon in The Trenches. So hopefully, that did go really under the radar. But honestly, I think some of that is even with Sisters out, or I think it's out. Yeah, because it came out with episode 7. So I think Tina Fey mania, we'll just use mania again, has kind of fizzled. And so maybe that's why she was even interested in doing Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, just to...
Plus, I just like saying that name. Which I just
realized what that stands for right now. I just realized I should have known with Tina Fey.
WTF.
Yeah, it'd be something stupid like that. Because she's an idiot.
Well,
so
if it's Fox that's putting out the movie, there'll be movie posters that say that.
Yeah.
Because they came up with anagrams for everything. LXG. X2.
Yeah, X2.
Which was probably one of the most laziest.
LXG was an attempt to save a movie that had a ridiculously long title that really drifted from source material, and so they were trying to make it cool. Anyway, we better get to the pièce à résistance and
time to get to the meat of the potato.
Talk a little bit, and this is going to be very broad strokes. We want to stay vague. We don't want to have spoilers. And just give kind of our feelings on The Force Awakens.
That's right. We're not giving away any spoilers because we're not those guys.
And honestly, apparently just saying it was great or it was terrible or whatever is apparently spoilers to some people. So if you're that person where we say, oh, I loved it, you're like, too much information, then just leave now. Or if we say hated it, too much information, just leave now. There's no point in listening, because apparently you're the person where everything's a spoiler. So just leave. Come back later.
I might give away a little too much.
Yeah, and I mean, just talking about it's giving away things, and you should go into this movie a little vague. You should go into any movie like a little vague, because you don't want to have preconceived notions can be the death of many movies, and I think are preconceived. You know what's nice about The Force Awakens was the trailers showed you things that got you excited about how it was going to look, but now going to the movie, you realize they didn't give anything away.
Yeah.
They just gave you like enough to like, so you could be like, see, this is what it's going to look like, and it's going to look like this, and they're going to be here, and you're like, oh, okay. And then you go into the movie and you realize, oh, that didn't really spoil anything, but it showed me the look of the movie, the feel of the movie. And so they did a really, really good job marketing this movie on that. But yeah, so I think now we'll just go into kind of our first initial feelings here.
Who are you?
I'm no one.
I was raised to do one thing. But I've got nothing to fight for.
Nothing will stand in our way. I will finish what you started.
There are stories about what happened.
It's true. All of it. The dark side. A Jedi. They're real.
The Force. It's calling to you. Just let it in.
So Dakota, how did you feel first off when the movie started and the Lucasfilm flickered and then the blue text that everyone knows came on the screen? Where were you at in that moment?
Well, you know, I was trying to be really reserved when it came to getting excited about this movie, and then all of a sudden it was just like I lost control, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
That was the thing. Like I walked in, and there's people leaving like the first showing in their stupid like Darth Maul outfits, and I'm like, "Oh, stupid!" And like, look at my lightsaber, and like, where's Hayden Christensen, and all this stupid stuff that people do. Yeah, and then there was like these annoying guys doing like Chewbacca screams for like the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, thanks for that, dude.
Yeah. And once that came up, you were just elated with emotions. Is that what you're basically saying? Especially when Star Wars banged onto the screen to the fanfare that everyone knows, even if they've never seen a Star Wars movie?
I actually was kind of grateful Disney didn't put their stupid little logo in front of this movie, because it probably would have killed the moment for me.
Yeah. Well, props to Disney on the way they handle all the things they've sucked into their gigantic evil monster that they are. Because Marvel's the same way. Like, it's so nice going to a Marvel movie and it just says, Marvel. There isn't like some stupid castle sparkle before. That's okay when I'm watching like Monsters University 7 or something, but when you're at like a Star Wars movie or like a comic book movie, it's nice to have the mouse house kind of out of the way a little bit in that aspect. And so I would agree with that. You stayed in that, you were still in that moment of it all. And the other thing is, both of us kind of, I remember in the moment, is the scroll, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, the scroll, for once, actually, it didn't confuse you. It was very straightforward. Told you what you needed to know.
It told you what you needed to know.
None of this crap about diplomatic relations or trade routes.
It had like the information. It had the information you needed to like know where the story was starting, and to bring you into the story, maybe even kind of catch you up a little bit on where we were. But yeah, like when you see it, like it's cool because the first sentence just the first sentence of that scroll is just like, there it is, and it brings you right into it. And yeah, it's just like, it just lays out the story. There's no like business class needed or just long sentences about negotiation things, and then you're in it, and then you're in the story. And that was something I probably appreciated about this movie the most, was that a lot of times when you come back into a story like this, there's two ways you can go that can make it really messy and screwy. Is way too nostalgic and get really nostalgic. Like Jurassic World dabbled way, like almost too far into nostalgia.
Yeah.
Like Colin Trevorrow, it just felt like he was like too far into like
I think that
fan service.
I think that's just simply because of the fact that he's just too huge of a fan.
Yeah, but that's why I was worried about JJ, was that he's a huge fan of Star Wars. He already has a tendency to be a little nostalgic about things. But I don't know if maybe bringing on Lawrence Kasdan to help him write it kind of reined him in a little bit, or maybe like Kathleen Kennedy, maybe her influence kind of reined him in a little bit.
I think part of it has to do with the fact that he checked himself before he wrecked himself.
Maybe he did. Maybe he knew his tendencies. Maybe he's understanding his weakness, because that was the thing with this movie, is that familiarity was there, and yet it felt really fresh, and it did what it was supposed to do. This was a continuation. It was like the first time we've had a real continuation to the Luke Skywalker story, and it did that. It just continued the story, without any, like, I don't know, we're gonna hang in the past this whole movie, or something, and
we're gonna
schmaltzy or something.
We're gonna come up with a whole bunch of new aliens you don't necessarily like, but we're gonna use them.
or have a Jar Jar Binks or something, yeah. And so he did. He hung you in that familiarity, but still brought you into the new generation of this world, really. And yeah, I'm
kind of gonna throw something out there. Looking back on it now, that beginning kind of reminded me of Saving Private Ryan in a way, and the fact that they're on it. It starts with these stormtroopers in their shuttle. They're going down to a planet, and they're crammed in this little area, and they're just like loading their blast rifles, and then the ship lands, and the trap door comes down, and they all just rush out shooting.
Yeah, you kind of really follow the stormtroopers into attack, I guess, really.
I thought that was kind of cool because, the first shot from the very first movie, we had the opposite end of that, where you see the rebels running into position with their blasters, getting ready to take these guys on.
Yeah, that's true. And then the stormtroopers come through the doors. Yeah, that's true.
And you don't really see them, like, I don't know, maybe they were back there, like, puffing away because it was the 70s when everybody smokes. Who knows what they were doing, but here they're all just very calm, professional.
Yeah.
Just really reserved. You don't see anybody kind of hesitating. And I was just like, wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is what cold-blooded efficient killers look like.
And that was the thing, is that through the story you kind of get a little bit into Stormtrooper lore, like where the Stormtroopers are coming from at this point. And that's the other thing I guess I would say I liked about this movie, was that it didn't overly exposition things like Christopher Nolan does, where he says really long, like, I'm going to tell you everything because you're too stupid.
Yeah, and then constantly bring up themes from that conversation.
Yeah, it feels like the things you needed to know about the past, what's going on and things, were just part of the conversation of the story as it progressed. And even though maybe they didn't answer every single little question, let's remember, this is number 1 of 3.
Yeah.
So I think we got to be careful about rushing into, like, well, they didn't answer this, and why would they do that and not explain it, and things like that. It's like, no, just let it progress. There's 3 movies here, people.
Plus, one major thing to remember, something that George Lucas, I think, forgot, less is sometimes more.
Yes, less is more. And I think that is what helped this movie. I guess an analogy to you people who don't quite get this would be, imagine, because everybody kind of was like, wanted all the answers by the end of this movie. Now imagine if in A New Hope, by the end of the movie, you knew that Darth Vader was Luke's father, and that he knew that Leia was his sister, and all that stuff just like happened in the first movie. It would be like, everything would just feel so out of left field and unexplained and rushed, where it's like, no, you like progress that out. You kind of like pulled that out, where in the original trilogy, near the end of the second movie was when Vader, Luke found out who Vader was. In the third movie was when he found out who his sister was, and so it was like, things kind of progress. You let it progress. You have 3 stories, or 3 movies here that are going to let this play out. And so I was really happy. I was really happy with that, about not having everything just like, kind of answered out, and that there were still like I wanted to leave wanting more, because that means that I want the continuation of the story, and things like that. And so, and Star Wars now is enough of a beast that they could end it without ending it, because they know they're going to be able to make another one. Whereas George Lucas, when he made the first Star Wars, wasn't sure if they were going to and so it had to have a little bit more of like a nice ending, which is why I think it had like the, pat each other on the back award ceremony almost, was just because they wanted to make sure that movie had its own wrapped upness to just throw together a bunch of words, so that it could be. But with this, you can have a little bit more of the, we'll flesh it out as we go here, and so, yeah, I thought that was nice too. Yeah. Anything else that kind of stuck out to you, Dakota, one way or the other?
I'm gonna come out there and say this just because I don't know, I want to. Okay. But I was actually really impressed with the character of Kylo Ren. I mean, Darth Vader I always thought was like really cool, and he was probably one of my favorite villains of all time. And in this movie, we actually got a really good villain. I thought it was interesting to kind of have him on one side, then you have the two other young actors on the other side, and it was just, first off, he's actually pretty cool. Like right off the bat, you see him showcase some powers that we've never seen before, and I didn't like his lightsaber. The fact that it had the hilt, yeah. But in this, it actually looks, once you get over that, it kind of looks pretty cool.
Well, yeah, like, yeah. Because it was just kind of flashed in the trailer, and I think it was so new. It was basically the Darth Maul moment of the trailer, when Darth Maul, you remember that episode 1 trailer? Where he goes, and all of a sudden it on the other side, and you're like, what the crap? And it was kind of that moment of that teaser. And it was like, you weren't sure what quite to think about it. But yeah, it wasn't, I hardly even thought about it during the movie, honestly. It wasn't like, oh, there's that stupid cross guard again, or something. I mean, it just was kind of part of the whole thing or whatever. Yeah. And if you want to, we'll get more into like character development and things like that probably in our spoiler episode, our less vague episode. about what we thought about these characters more specifically. So if you're interested in that after you've seen the movie, you can listen to that episode when it's out. But yeah, I'm with you on that. And as far as let's go into the fresh meat first.
Okay.
So we had kind of, we'll just say kind of the main 4 fresh people. You had Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and Adam Driver, as a kind of this new kind of fresh meat to the Star Wars universe. How'd you feel about them coming in? Did any of them stick out to you negatively in that aspect?
No, for newcomers, they were all well, I guess they're mostly unknowns because Oscar Isaac's obviously been in a few movies.
Yeah, Oscar Isaac has been more in the Hollywood spotlight since like 2006, but he really only came really into the spotlight probably a couple of years ago with that Coen Brothers movie he was in. Inside Llewyn, is that how you say it? Llewyn Davis?
Yeah.
So he's really only been heavily in the spotlight for a couple of years, but kind of his first big Hollywood movie was he played Joseph in The Nativity Story in 2006. And that's when I first took notice of him and was like, wow, he was really good. He was definitely the standout in The Nativity Story.
Yeah, younger people might remember him as he had a small cameo in the movie 21 Jump Street as the principal in that movie.
Oh, there you go. Didn't know that.
He wasn't in the movie. I think he was in the movie probably about, if anything, 4 minutes, but he was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Definitely got your attention. And then in this one, he's kind of playing a character. I was trying to figure out what to call him. Kind of that gung-ho, let's do this type guy. He's playing a pilot in this movie.
Well, I think the best way to describe him is he's the new swagger.
Yeah.
He's the guy who's going to have the new swagger in the series. And
this is the new hotness.
Yeah, and the other one that John Boyega, what I thought was interesting about him, he's the guy you've seen in the trailer, the stormtrooper with his helmet off, breathing heavily.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting about him is it felt like there was a little bit of like, I'm in a Star Wars movie, but I think some of that was he was just kind of, the character he was kind of high strung, but I also thought he did a good, I thought his character was an interesting character, and he did a good job with it. And Daisy Ridley, she was literally probably the most out of the blue, just because John Boyega got a little bit of a cult following with a movie he did, Attack the Block, I think it was called, where he, some British.
Yeah, you might have heard about it with the alien werewolves.
Yeah, and he's kind of like a gang leader, I think, that takes him on. And she was literally, who the heck is this? And everyone was Googling Daisy Ridley when she was announced and coming up with nothing except for, some short films she was in and a few TV shows for the BBC. And so she was, literally, who is this person? And she did fine. She did fine. She did a good job. I mean, they all kind of held their own in there.
I'm going to be honest with you. The real breakout star of this movie had to have been BB-8.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
The way you look at it, it's, this is the new R2.
I honestly got a little worried because BB-8 was getting quite a bit of attention, before the movie came out. And I'm like, well, it's like this cute little ball thing, and they know it's an easy merchandise sell, and we can make a $150 remote control thing that's 2 inches high, and you'll buy it because he's cute and whatever. And so I thought it was just all this stupid merchandise plug, and obviously it still is. I mean, there's a lot of money in Star Wars toys, people. I mean, the more robots and people that these screenwriters create, Disney just gets dollar signs in their eyes and is swimming in their coins like Scrooge McDuck. Let's be honest here, people. It's a merchandise sell. But at the same time, yes, I went into this a little okay. Yeah, I didn't think I would enjoy BB-8 as much as I did. I thought it would be a total R2 substitute. And no, again, there's a familiarity in the fact that there was this droid that had a certain R2D2-ness to it, but was again kind of a cool new fresh character that had a personality, which was kind of interesting. You don't really, but I guess now you think about R2D2 had a unique personality, C-3PO has a unique personality, where it was like, yeah, you don't think about it, but yeah, BB-8. There you go. What about the old cast? Do you think all the old cast kind of held their own? I guess I'd say that.
Yeah, Peter Mayhew certainly hasn't aged in this movie. I'll tell you what. Just watching him on screen really took me back to
Wookiees age slower because you got to remember, like, Chewie's already like 200 years old or something.
Yeah, I was honestly surprised they're not in the movie as much as you would think they would be. But when they're there, they're actually pretty strong. I mean, this is a completely different side of Han Solo that we're seeing. It's not the same person we left him off as. He's
I guess I would disagree a little bit there. I would say that this is Han Solo in a different period of his life, but he's still Han. Is kind of where that is. But yeah, we'll kind of stop there with that because we don't want to give away too much about where everybody fits in to the story. But yeah, I mean, as far as the original cast, they did just as good a job. They all kind of fit back into their roles, and again, it wasn't like so much into nostalgia that they were distracting. They all fit into the story with the way they were used. It was, again, a continuation. It wasn't like they were just there to be like the, hey, here I am, I'm in the movie, or something. Like, they meant, if they were, they meant something. They meant something, and they were part of the story, and so that was nice. But I guess the other thing that gave it a familiarity, obviously, was the fact that John Williams came back to not only bring us all the Star Wars themes we know and love, but to bring us some new themes for the new characters, obviously. And I guess the one that really stuck out to me was Rey's theme. I really enjoyed kind of the theme he used for her and the way she's introduced, but with these new themes, John Williams is really cool. He has this thing where he always makes all of the themes able to blend back in to the main Star Wars theme, and it's just cool how he does that, so that even with these new ones he made, they can all come right back into what and I was thinking about, what, he's in his 80s, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we gotta safely assume that he might do the music for episode 8, but he probably won't for episode 9. I mean, he could live that long, but will he still be directing and composing? It's hard to know. So I started thinking, I wonder who could fill his shoes. But I mean, the easy name that people throw out there is, Michael Giacchino. And granted, that guy does write good scores and stuff, but yeah, it kind of makes me think who they might have to pull in, because I don't know.
Danny Elfman?
No, not Danny Elfman. That dude needed to quit doing stuff I don't know, early 2000s. But yeah, and so again,
Trent Reznor.
You had all that, but then it got me thinking too, because obviously this movie opens with the scroll, episode 7, Force Awakens, scroll, the story. It kind of got me thinking, for these anthology movies, we have Rogue One coming out next year, will they do the fanfare start? Will they have Star Wars blast onto the screen and then do a scroll? Or do you think they'll do something different?
It's hard to tell with Disney now owning things. Who knows? I mean, there's a Han Solo movie coming out.
Yeah, just any of them. I almost lean toward, I think it'd be cool for these, since these aren't main saga movies, it would be cool if they
just did away with that.
Maybe just had them start. Maybe just or do a cold open where the movie opens, and then you flash up Rogue One, a Star Wars story, or, you know, like, or something, whatever they're going to have it, you know, kind of listed as on there. And, you know, like, something like that could be cool, too. Especially for one like Rogue One, where it's basically something that's taking place prior to and maybe kind of during the events of A New Hope, since it's them getting the plans for the Death Star. And so maybe it'd be cool if, like, you did kind of have it like that, where it's like, this is a Star Wars story, but it isn't one of the big saga ones, you know, and yeah, it might be a cool way to do it. Just have to wait and see, I guess. But I guess bottom line we want to get to with this little thingamabob we got going here is just bottom line, flat out, Dakota, what do you give this movie?
Well, to quote a Disney villain, I give it 2 thumbs way, way up.
Who the heck said that? Was that like Hades from
Yeah.
Hercules? I was going to say, it seems like something James Wood did or something.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm not gonna lie. I just the Star Wars fan in me just loved this movie. Just loved it so much. I just want to squeeze it and just hold it. I mean, there's so much in this movie. If you like Star Wars, you're probably going to like this movie too, just because sure, this movie isn't exactly breaking any new ground here. The story's going to kind of feel a little similar in some parts. There's going to be some shots that really take you back to the first trilogy, but that's not a bad thing. It's all done in a new kind of way. There's a scene in particular where we saw some X-wings racing down a trench, and these turrets were firing at them, and I was like, "Oh, hey, cool!" But it didn't take anything away from the movie. It didn't, make me stop and say, "Oh, they're just reusing shots from the old ones."
Right.
And then, of course, seeing kind of this new version of the Empire, but not exactly new with the with this
First Order.
Yeah, the First Order here. It all kind of just fit well. This movie was also really light. I was kind of surprised. It was kind of, there were some moments where it was a little sad, but a lot of comedic moments that kept me laughing.
That's true. For those of you who are worried this is going to be another like dark and gritty kind of bring it back in a gritty way. No, I mean, they understood how to balance the story with still having lighthearted moments, but at the same time, the lighthearted moments don't take away from the moments that you're supposed to feel something in. Yeah, just like the best, even if you want to go back to like Empire Strikes Back. I mean, you felt the heavy moments and you felt the fun moments, even when they were like scene to scene like that. And yeah, they captured that well too. Yep.
Yeah, this movie just had a lot of things going for it. Like we said, this is the spoiler-free episode, but there was just so many movies or moments to just geek out in with this movie. The way we're reintroduced to the Millennium Falcon, kind of learning what Han Solo's been up to the last few years, seeing Leia for the first time in this movie, Luke probably the big moment, when you finally see him again. And it's just, oh man, it was just all, I'm actually going to use the word exciting, because it's like, oh my god, there they are again, playing these what are now iconic characters
Without phoning it in.
Yes.
None of them felt like they were just like, all right, here I am, this is what you wanted, right? I mean, they all seemed genuinely invested.
Actually, there's one moment where I could think of where that happened, but it was with R2, so it's okay.
It's hard to tell. Yeah. And so you're giving it like just a pretty enthusiastic recommend / you should see it as many times as you possibly can.
Yes.
Okay. And to kind of, I guess I would be in the same boat to kind of play off of what Dakota was saying, and it was like, yeah, the movie, like, yeah, when he was talking about just like scenes that kind of took you back, but they took you back, like he said, in the right way, where you weren't out of the moment of the present movie. It took you back in the way where you're like, oh, this is so much fun. It was like, you weren't like sad and depressed like I'm sorry, but especially like episode 2, there was just a moment where I just remember feeling like a sadness where I was just like, this isn't Star Wars.
Was it when Anakin talks about sand?
It was especially basically when, he just became a creeper in that movie. And it was just like, I guess that was the thing, is this was just a breath of fresh air. And I can honestly say, because some people give Avengers a hard time where it was like, well, yeah, everybody was excited the first time, but you can't watch it again. And I don't know if I tend to totally agree with people saying that about Avengers, but I've seen it twice now. I've seen Star Wars twice now. Episode 7. Sorry, you can't just say Star Wars, I guess. And honestly, the second time I was a little worried. I did go in with more trepidations, like, here I am. This is when I find out. This is when I find out if I was just totally buzzed that first time, if I was just drunk on Star Wars that first time. And so I went in this time just completely sober. Like, there wasn't an ounce of Star Wars alcohol in my system, where I was drunk on nostalgia. And there was certain points in the movie that hit me harder this time, or just stuck out to me more in a better way. And so I think this will be just how we remember, especially like New Hope and Empire Strikes Back and stuff, where it's like you do want to go back and revisit. You want to have that story, because I mean, it's the story. It's the story Star Wars is always the story we all love, where it's like you feel, where it's just inspiring, where it's like, where this nobody ends up becoming like a hero or something. That's what Star Wars is, and like how there's a certain amount of hero in all of us, and type things, and how it's just exciting. And then to see it all play out on screen, it just gets you like elated, and again, this isn't a movie where it's just brainless in that way, where it's just like, it's exciting and it still feels like you're in the same universe, and it's a true continuation. And so I too would have to see it. And I'm guessing if you're remotely at all a Star Wars fan, you're definitely not going to come out sad. You're probably going to want to see it again. Honestly, I have heard a few like naysayers, and when I look at why they are naysaying, it's like in these like ridiculous nitpicky ways, where it's like, okay, name me one movie that got everything right, because that's the thing. It probably isn't a perfect movie. Actually, I know it isn't. Now that I think, I mean, there's little things you could pick at if you wanted to, but honestly, Orson Welles didn't film a perfect movie either with Citizen Kane. Sorry, AFI. I mean, there's just no such thing as a perfect movie. You just try to find those right strides that go, okay, are we going the right way with the story of Luke and where Han would go, and bringing in these new people and how we're fitting them in, and is this coming together right, and actually being a story and not just, some sort of fan service. And I think they did it. I think they honestly made a story that works, and part of that is I give props to J.J. Abrams for bringing in Lawrence Kasdan, who helped do screenwriting on episodes 5 and 6. Yeah. And so he brought in this screenwriter who had been around with Star Wars before and kind of understood those characters, and then you had JJ kind of decide, well, how can we kind of move us in a fresh way? And I think that just helped. And so I too, at the risk of us agreeing on this here, which maybe is kind of boring to you. I mean, for goodness sakes, I look over and Dakota's wearing a shirt that has the rebel symbol on it. There's just no design. There's no denying. They awakened a franchise once again. It's been awakened. And it's really, in a lot of ways, been brought back from death, because those prequels were stinky, rotten corpses.
I think you're being a little too hard on that.
The
first one was just god awful. That's true.
I honestly think episode 2 might be the worst. I don't think I'm being hard on them, because it is hard to watch them without getting just a bad taste in your mouth and not really feeling very Star Warsy once the scroll is over.
Yeah, I think the problem with the whole thing is George Lucas just kind of got older, and when you get older, things, ideas, perspectives on things just change.
I don't even know it was that. I think Star Wars got bigger than he was. I think he was a technical director who didn't know how to be a story director. And he was completely in charge on the prequels, like story, directing, everything. Whereas he didn't have very, he didn't direct Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi, and somebody else kind of, he had his points in there and stuff, but I think he lost his way somewhere. And I honestly think 1997 was the year he was warning us, I've lost my way, when he started just messing with them. And I think the reason he's messing with them is because he is such a technical director that he was so busy thinking about, I got to add this to the Sarlacc pit, and I gotta have this screen just totally congested with things walking across that we can barely see Luke and Ben going down on the land speeder, that he lost his way on what Star Wars really is. And the bottom line is, Star Wars is all about the great characters and your investment in them, not about how many cartoon characters walk through a shot. And
yeah, I think he kind of wanted to make it feel bigger than it really was, and he ended up just they became distractions. I mean, you watch them now, and they're just like, oh, look at that ugly CGI that looks like it just popped out of a video game. Not even a good video game, like one from like the original Xbox.
like if you've ever played the Hellboy game for PlayStation 1, it's about that cartoony and boxy. But yeah, and so I give him a lot of credit for creating a really cool world and starting Star Wars off. But in the same vein, where I'm glad JJ isn't directing anymore, I'm glad George is kind of maybe a little bit on the outside now, because I think JJ could go the same route, because he's really good at catapulting things, but I don't know if he's the best guy to continue it on. So I am glad that JJ maybe got it off the ground the right way, but I'm glad that maybe he's not going to make any more of them.
Yeah, he already ruined one porn franchise for me. I'd rather not go into that.
And so there's our review, broad stroke review on Force Awakens, and we kind of rabbit trailed there at the end, but that's okay. That's what it's all about, is just talking about movies. That's why we call ourselves what we do, not because...
this is kind of getting off topic, but still talking about George Lucas. I recently found out that when he sold Lucasfilm, he sold it. I don't know if you guys are aware. He sold it to Disney for $4 billion.
Yeah, you heard that right. $4 billion.
And when that happened,
he's doing okay.
He actually offered his expertise on Star Wars.
Yes,
he offered character input.
He had a lot of different script outlines.
Yeah, like where he wanted the characters to go, and they pretty much just gave him a very, very firm, polite, no thank you, we got this.
Yeah, they did. To use the word broad stroke again, I think maybe what they did take from him was the broad stroke ideas, because what they did right now is really what George had wanted to do in the bigger sense was, hey, let's continue Luke's story 30 years later. There's this old interview of Mark Hamill like in the early 90s on some talk show where on the set of like Return of the Jedi.
I think it's he's talking to Oprah, isn't he?
I don't remember. He's on some talk show, but Mark Hamill says how George Lucas said, I really want to have you continue playing Luke maybe around 2011 or so. And well, here it's 2015. And so, I mean, it's like there is a sense where maybe George's vision is there, and obviously George is the one who created this world and in these original characters. But like I said, I think it got almost his art transcended him.
Yeah, and he didn't quite know how to.
And he didn't know what to do because he's not a story guy. I just don't think he's a story guy. I appreciate his technical and how he did push the guys to almost hate him in that original trilogy, to push like how they did special effects. But somewhere along the way he just kind of lost his way, I think. But
You know, to kind of bring up something else, after it was, I think, 2 years after Revenge of the Sith had ended, Matthew McConaughey, of all people, was doing an interview with somebody, and they asked him, what film, what sequel to what film would you like to see? And he actually brought up how he would like to see the sequels to the original Star Wars, which would be 7, 8, 9. And
well, I'll tell you what I'd like to see.
The interviewer actually thought that was ridiculous. Like, no, that will never happen. And I'm pretty sure you don't want to see that. And here we are. And it's like, how could she ever do that?
And I don't think it would have happened if he wouldn't have probably given over, the control that he did to somebody else.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he would have done something, but yeah, it's hard to say. But I think with that, we'll kind of wrap up this episode here and just say, obviously, Force Awakens, see it. For those of you out there who are not familiar with the Star Wars world, I don't think that'll really hinder you from this movie. Obviously, there's a lot of nostalgic moments you just won't totally go over or smack yourself like the lady next to me the second time I went was doing. She just kept smacking herself and groaning. It was kind of weird, and I was a little off put by maybe what was going on next to me. But you'll still have an enjoyable time, and I think maybe actually I think it probably would. I mean, if you ended up liking Force Awakens, it probably would cause you to want to go back and be like, okay, well, why, where did these people come from? And, maybe I should check those out. So there is that going for you too. So, yeah, I guess just to put a cap on this, remember to like us on Facebook, where we keep you updated on different things and news, things like that. And then, subscribe to us on YouTube or a podcast thing. There's been some technical difficulties going on later. I'll let you guys know about on Facebook page, but hopefully we'll get those worked out. And when I kind of look over, it looks like not all of you are maybe having that problem, just because there's still that going on. But there's no problem on YouTube, so if you are having problems, just watch on YouTube until hopefully we can get this worked out here with the other things, if you are having that problem. So go ahead and take advantage of those things. And, rate and review us. Tell us what you think. Please don't get too mad at us about this episode if you think we did go too far. I tried to warn you at the beginning that any information is going to be too much information to a certain percentage of you, because that's just how it is. I get it. I tried not to hear anything about the movie until I saw it. So, yeah, I get that. So with that, we'll close it out. So I'm Steven.
This is Dakota.
See you later.